Hey friend, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast for women who want to learn how to live an intentional life or build their creative business. I'll be giving you my very best business tips, bringing you interesting guests, giving you a daily dose of Jesus, and I'm committed to always keeping it real. Grab a cup of coffee and let's dive in. I'm so honored that you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast this week. As always, I'm super excited to chat with you and bring to you what I think is a riveting topic. We are going to talk about things to look at when the sales in your business are just not what you want them to be. I wish you could see me right now because I'm clapping my hands. So when the sales in your business are just not where you want them to be, there are literally 4 things that you can look at and consider and ponder and make sure are on point so that you can get your sales up. Because at the end of the day, if you're not making sales, like you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And my heart's desire is to make sure that you get from being a hobbyist to a business owner. By the way, didn't plan on this at all, but this is for somebody who's listening to this podcast today. If you need to know how exactly, like, what's the difference between a hobbyist and a business owner? What do I need to do to go from hobby to business owner? Like, that sounds sexy, but how do I get it? Okay, go to right now, write this down. Somebody write this down. JenniferAllwood.com/starter pack. We literally made that for those people who are currently like doing hobby stuff, but they want to make more money at it. So perhaps it's not official. It's not, they haven't registered a business with the state. Uncle Sam doesn't know what they're doing. They're just kind of playing around on Etsy. They're putting stuff on their personal profile list. That's all a big no-no, okay? So I help you to go from hobby to official business at JenniferAllwood.com/starter pack. Totally didn't even mean to talk about that. But if your sales are not what you want them to be, then you're currently operating as a hobby. And operating as a hobby is sometimes painful. Like, it's okay if you just have, not just have, but it's okay if you're playing. Like if you're not concerned about making X amount of dollars a month. But if you're someone who's like, hey, I've got a mortgage to pay this month and we need to make X amount of dollars, then you need to be treating that thing like a business so that it will pay you like a business. Okay. So there are literally 4 things that will affect sales. All right. 4 things. And I'm going to get into them in just 2 shakes. Real quickly though, I want to read a quick podcast review. And the reason I do this is twofold. Number 1, hopefully by reading a review from a business owner, it will cause you to go look her up, perhaps support her as a small business. So this one is from Natalie at Kidpreneur Project. Also, second, hopefully it will cause you to go leave a podcast review on my podcast if you go over to iTunes. And this is how we get amazing sponsors for the podcast. This is how I get invited to be guests on people's podcasts. So if you have a chance to go over to iTunes, please leave us a review. So here's what Natalie at Kidpreneur Project says. She says, I bring all the wisdom with a tough dose of love. My message is uplifting, positive, and actionable, and she feels totally motivated to tackle the challenges in her business and life after every episode. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I just want to say, Natalie, thank you. And God bless you and your business at Kidpreneur Project. I hope that God just gives you double blessing for whatever you're doing in that business, and just want to bless you with that right now. So back to the podcast here. There are 4 things that affect your sales. Okay, you ready? Here are the 4 things. Number 1, are you selling the right thing? Is it to the right people at the right time and for the right price? So those are literally the 4 things that affect sales. All right? The right thing to the right people at the right time and the right price. Now, of course, is there stuff like marketing and Facebook ads? Of course. But at its core, everything boils down to these 4 things, okay? So the right thing to the right people at the right time at the right price. I'm going to break down every single one of those for you so that you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So first things first, are you selling the right thing? All right, so here's the deal. And I talked about this last week in the podcast when I talked about why you shouldn't be a jack of all trades and why that, doing all of the things is actually causing confusion, which is causing your revenue to not be where it needs to be either. So back to this week's podcast though, I know I used this as an example last week. If you heard it, you're still going to giggle. All right. Selling the right thing. This is the example that I always use. Underwater basket weaving. Okay, listen, kids, that's the wrong thing, all right? Nobody purchases courses about underwater basket weaving. That is literally not sellable, and it's nothing that is going to cause you to be making an income, okay? So if you have this deep-seated passion to be doing underwater basket weaving, I need you to just throw that out the door. It ain't ever gonna happen for you, okay? So the right thing Like think about, is what you're selling, is it current? Are you still perhaps selling, stenciled furniture when in your area, people are not doing stenciled furniture anymore? They're wanting things with a higher gloss finish. They're wanting stuff that's more colorful. They're wanting things that look a little more urban. You got to make sure that what you're selling is still on trend. Are you selling clothing that, is new in your store, but perhaps the trend looks like last year? Like it might not be the right thing. Another thing to consider when you're looking at, do you have the right thing, is, are you selling something that people actually need? I think about a woman who's in my coaching group. Her name is Samantha Day. She's in my inner circle, and she is a sleep consultant. Now listen, at first thought, you may be thinking, a sleep consultant, like how on earth can you make a business out of that? Oh my gosh, you guys, there is such a need for people to help exhausted parents get babies to sleep. Or I would even go out on a limb, I don't think this is what Samantha does, but talk about women who are currently in menopause who are waking up, every couple of hours, like drenched in hot sweats, night sweats, what are they called? Hot flashes, all of the things when you're in menopause. And so new parents are desperate for sleep. There is completely a need for sleep consulting in the online space. People will actually pay for that. So you have to remember when you're thinking about, okay, am I selling something that people would actually want? Well, are you selling a shortcut? For those of you who are into coaching, you're into motivating, you're into teaching people something like, how to use Pinterest, how to use LinkedIn. Like, make sure that you're giving people a fast way to get from where they are currently at to where they really want to be. And then that's how you know that this is like a really relevant product, okay? So one thing I want to caution my audience against is sometimes entrepreneurs will come to me and they've gone through the whole, starter pack, and they're like, all right, Jen, I'm in your inner circle. I'm so excited. I have this idea and I've never seen it before. And I'll be like, warning, warning, warning. In fact, I think there was like this cartoon once. Let me think here. I'm going to date myself. It's warning something. Bill Robinson, warning Will Robinson. Does that sound familiar? Is that right? Somebody tweet me, let me know. But it's like warning bells go off when they tell me that it's something nobody's ever seen before. Or, they're trying to like invent something. And I'm always like, ooh. Okay. Sometimes people do invent things that have never been around before, and it changes life as we know it, i.e. Bill Gates, i.e. Steve Jobs. I always have to stop myself because I'm like, is it Jobs or is it Jobs? One does Apple, one does the Bible. And then I always have to think also of like Jif and GIF. One is a peanut butter, one is a gift. I still don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. These are things you don't need to know. I'm smart in other areas. And so, if nobody's ever done it before, perhaps it's a really bad idea. Or perhaps they did it and it failed miserably. So I don't want you to be thinking about reinventing the wheel. Instead, I just want you to think like, could you take something somebody's currently doing and just tweak it and reposition it and see where it's got holes? Like let's say the furniture painting industry, for instance. I coached somebody at one point who I was like, girl, there are tons of furniture painters out there, but you know what? There's not a lot of people teaching people how to refinish furniture or how to strip furniture once everybody and their brother has painted it and they want to go back to wood. Now that, see how you can take what's hot in the industry and just see where the hole is and what somebody's not doing. And that would be something that would totally sell in the online space, okay? I know that everybody wants to come up with something nobody's done before. That sounds very sexy, but will it sell? I don't know. And you don't know either. And so go to Pinterest. This is a tip that I always tell people, right? Go to Pinterest. See if there are people out there on Pinterest. And by the way, Pinterest is just like a sexy Google. It is like the fun Google for the fun women who don't want to just go to the Googles. We want to go to Pinterest and look things up. I was telling somebody today, I was a guest on her podcast. If I'm getting ready to book a trip to Hawaii, I'm not going to Google to see what to do in Hawaii. I'm going to Pinterest to find out things to do in Hawaii. So please don't forget Pinterest. Go to Pinterest and I want you to do some market research. I want you to even see if the thing that you're thinking about doing, dog walking, making headbands for little girls, furniture painting, furniture stenciling, furniture refinishing, furniture, whatever. See if there are people already doing it, okay? And you want to make sure that you're not going into an area that is completely oversaturated, but very rarely is that the case. I actually even have a podcast episode about the myth of saturated markets. If you want, you could totally go listen to that episode. You can just go to Google and type in, you can't go to Pinterest, by the way, and type this in, but you can go to Google and type in Jennifer Allwood podcast saturated market, and that episode will come up for you. All right. So number one, are you selling the right thing? Number two is, are you selling the right thing to the right people? All right. So let's say that you live in a small town and you have a taste that is much more urban than the small community you live in. Or you live in the heart of America and you really love stuff that has more of a New York City vibe to it, which is great. And perhaps your local area needs that. But I'm not sure that they're your right people. You might have to be like, shipping some things or selling it local in your area, but then figuring out how to market it to the right people. Does that make sense? Another idea, trying to determine if you get the right people. If you have an elderly audience, like an audience, that doesn't have small children, but you've decided to open an online boutique with girls' clothes, like you've got the wrong people. You've got the wrong audience right now. You're going to have to build something different. If you decide all of a sudden you've got a Facebook page that has to do with cats, but all of a sudden you want to sell dog collars, I don't know that you have the right audience. Those aren't the right people. And so you might have to do a little bit of shaking and bacon to reposition yourself to find the right people. I'll give you a real life example that has to do with me, okay? Even if you're shifting and perhaps don't have the right people at this time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you won't. So when I started my Facebook page, and if you don't follow me on Facebook, you can just go search for Jennifer Allwood on Facebook. I do have a blue check mark behind my name, so it's easy to find. And I tell people about the blue check mark, not to brag, but otherwise I literally will get 100 DMs, or not DMs, but friend requests from people who are trying to be my personal Facebook friend. No, I don't do business on my personal Facebook page. And I don't accept friend requests from people I don't know. So there's that. Also, some of you need to abide by that very personal rule. So let's say, in my case, when I started my Facebook page, it was called The Magic Brush. 100% of my followers were interested in following me for painting, design, refinishing furniture, painting in people's houses, and etc. All right. So over the course of the last 5 years, we have really shifted to where now the majority of my followers that have started following me in the last several years, they're not following me so much for painting and DIY and projects, but more for business advice. They're following me to teach them how to grow their own business in the online space, all right? So where we were 100% home and DIY at one time, probably right now my followers are 50-50. Half the people that are following me are still here for DIY, design, all the things. They're on my email list. They get my projects sent to them there. The other half of the people are all coming to me for business, okay? And so it is very possible to shift the audience that you currently have or to add to the audience in a way that will be attracting a different kind of people and for that still to be successful. I do actually have a podcast episode on pivoting. And every time I talk about the pivoting episode, one of you reminds me about that episode of Friends with Ross and the furniture on the stairway. And then we all giggle and wish that Friends would come back online and that we could all go back to wearing denim overalls and not look ridiculous. I bought some overalls, side note, for Ari in the last couple of weeks. She's so cute. And I'm looking at her going, man, in my 20s, I rocked those denim overalls. I so wish I could do that again. So go listen to that Pivot podcast and be encouraged. But you do, if you're if I'm not selling what I want to sell, I really need to examine, am I marketing it to the right people? Because that could be a problem. All right. Hey friends, today's podcast is sponsored by Melissa Scott. So Melissa is a creative thinker and the mother of triplets. She has an incredible 4-week Bible-based course called The True Courage Method. In this course, Melissa teaches you how to effectively rewire your thinking by tackling your negative thoughts and feelings that are keeping you stuck. And I think that's something we can all relate to. So in this course, she gives you daily instruction on becoming a more positive and grateful thinker, incorporating mind disciplines, embracing self-confidence through Christ, and developing courage to accomplish your goals. So if that's something that you're interested in, go sign up at themelissascott.com/course, or you can look her up on Facebook at Hello Courageous Melissa Scott. Now back to the program. Third thing, Are you selling the right thing to the right people at the right time? I have a couple of really great examples for you, okay? Let's say you're someone that does Christmas decorating. Well, it's going to be hard for you to make money at Easter, or selling Christmas decor. It's going to be really hard before the 4th of July for you to be doing much with that. Your timing is off. It's a seasonal thing. Let's say you do courses, membership groups, DIY videos, those sorts of things. The timing there is really important as well. So it's not so much a seasonal thing, but it's more you've got to have the right time for your ideal client. So let me give you an example. For any of you who are thinking about opening a course, launching a membership group of any kind. By the way, I've got a training coming up on membership groups for you, so stay tuned for that. If you're thinking about doing any of those things, launching something around Memorial Day is horrible, in my opinion. At least if your audience is similar to mine, that you have a lot of moms following you. Listen, come May 1st, moms are checked out until August 15th. Somebody write that down. Come May 1st, every mother is checked out until August 15th. I'm going to tell you why. In her head, she's going, holy crap, I love these kids. I'm obsessed with them. They're getting ready to be home for the summer. So I don't have time to start anything new because I got to prep my mind and my home and all the things for people to be home during the summer. And then she's checked out until the middle of August. At the beginning of August, she's still trying to get her kids' immunizations up to date for sports they're getting ready to start. She's still doing last minute school shopping, going to every Walmart and Target in town to find those stinking 3-ring binders or the folders with the metal grommet brackety thingies. You know what I'm talking about? Every year, I'm like, we can't find these. Side note, for those of you who have kids in school, if your school ever offers you a supply pack, your answer is, yes, ma'am, I'll take 2. For me and my friend who's too stubborn to sign up for the supply pack because she thinks it's going to be fun to go supply shopping for a kindergartner. That is the biggest lie there is, my friends. No. Buy the supply pack. Okay, that's just a little freebie for those of you who are listening today. So buy the supply pack. So if you're going to offer anything, it needs to be done before kids are getting out of school, preferably before May 1st even, because mamas are checking out. I'm telling you, mamas are checking out by May 1st. They're preparing their home for the kids being home from the summer. So I also suggest then, don't be trying to launch something in June or July. Now, I know so-and-so did it and so-and-so did it, but if you have an audience like mine, who is mostly women and a lot of moms, they aren't listening to you. In June and July, they're at the lake. They are, at the pool. They are Googling what to do with all of these kids during the summer months. They are not trying to be doing a course or launching anything new or taking a video or taking a membership group. They ain't into that. Okay. I can remember when all the kids were younger, and it's easier now that they're a little older, but I check out from business for about 2.5 months during the summer where I am very hands-off other than the minimal amount of stuff I have to do. I want to take my kids to the movies. I want to be the one taking them out to do things. We don't have a nanny. It's Jason and I raising our kids. And so, because I want to be the one sitting down doing Play-Doh. I want to be the one that's out at the pool with them. So keep in mind, who's your ideal audience? But if it's mamas, don't be launching anything during the summer. All right. So if you are launching things in the DIY industry and your ideal audience is people who are like Etsy people, they're in shops, they're in stores. Listen, October, November, December are the hottest months for most people in the creative industry. So what does that mean for you? Well, that means that for most makers, DIYers, business owners, if Q4 is where they make up a huge percentage of their yearly revenue, don't be launching something to them during that time. They don't have the emotional capacity to be doing anything other than keeping their head above water and keeping their eyes on the fact that Q4 is making up the majority of their income for the year. Okay. So the timing has to be right when it comes to sales. So we've talked about the right thing to the right people at the right time. The last thing, the fourth thing I want to talk about real quick is it at the right price? So you've already figured out you've got a hot product, right? And you're launching it to the right people and at the right time. But now comes pricing. Now, this is where things get a little loosey-goosey. This is especially where my creatives start breaking out in hives and they start doing the whole thing where they're like, well, I'm going to look at her price and I'm going to look at her price. And then they end up shooting themselves in the foot and they're doing the whole comparison thing and the imposter syndrome and they don't value, their knowledge. By the way, some of you need to go back and listen to my podcast that I just did in the last 2 weeks called Why I Have a Serious Issue with the Charge What You Are Worth. I don't like that saying. And I'm going to tell you why, because you are not your work. And so it doesn't matter if you are sweeping floors as a janitor or putting out $5,000 products online, your worth is absolutely the same in the eyes of our creators. So I don't like that saying. But I also don't want you, that doesn't mean to keep underpricing yourself. So let's talk about pricing real quick, all right? There are two very different ways of thinking when it comes to pricing, and both of them have a place. So when it comes to pricing your product, your course, your cute earrings, the clothes you've got in your boutique, I think there needs to be some initial dialogue you have with yourself and some initial thoughts like, who do I want to serve? Do I want to be more of like the Walmart of my industry or more like the Target of my industry? You can tell by the way I say Target that that's where I'm always going to want you to be. So listen, but the world needs Walmart too. Okay, let me just say that right across the board. I just can't stand going into a Walmart. So there's that, okay? But if you're going to be Walmart, you have to do so many more sales at a discounted price. It's a different type of mentality. It's a different type of client that you are attracting. But on the other side of that, you have got more of the Target mentality. We're going to have a little higher priced item, have to sell less of the item to make the same amount. But a lot of times the mindset is a little bit different. They'll come to you already wired in a different way. So, then I think you could also make the case for, or do I want to be the Nordstroms? Do I want to be the Nordstroms in my industry? Do I literally just want to target people that can really afford it's going to be a small fraction of people because it's at a high price point. And so I can't answer that question for you. Only you can answer where you want to be. Do you want to be the Walmart, the Target, or the Nordstroms in your industry? Pricing is hard, and a lot of times pricing is really emotional. If you guys are interested, literally go and leave me a review on this podcast and say, Jennifer, will you please do a podcast episode about pricing alone? And I will get that on the books. But pricing is the fourth thing that controls whether or not you're making the type of sales that you want. Do you have the right product at the right time to the right people and at the right price? Those are the four things you can control. Now, listen, of course, we've got other things that matter like Facebook ads and your marketing strategy and who you know and your reputation. And have you built anticipation? And do you have a team helping you? We have all of those things as well. But I wanted to talk to you today about the four things that you personally can control. Now, next week on the podcast, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the people that we have here at Team Allwood. And a lot of times I will have entrepreneurs who come to me, they'll start in my inner circle and they'll be like, Jennifer, I can't afford to hire help. And I'll be like, girlfriend, you can't not afford to hire help. It's the same kind of thing as like tithing. I can't afford to tithe. Well, you can't afford not to, babe. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to talk to you about building a team. And I want to kind of highlight for you over the next couple of weeks some roles here at Team Allwood and some people here on my team and kind of give you an idea of what those people are doing. So we're going to talk next week about what my team looks like, what each of those people are doing, and kind of how that works. Now, that does include talking about Mr. Magic. He has now been with me full time. It was a year last week. Can you believe that already? We have literally been working side by side for a year. One of the hardest things I think we've ever done as a couple. And we're going to bring him back for another episode. We did an episode together at the first of the year, and that was by far my most downloaded episode of all time. I'm starting to feel a little vulnerable, feeling like you guys enjoy my husband more than you enjoy me. I'm kidding. And but we're going to bring him back for podcast episode number 2. Now that we've been doing this for a year and we've learned a thing or two and we're still struggling and, mucking through some stuff, my friends, like literally. So for those of you who have this burning desire to work with your spouse, listen, it's lovely when it's lovely and it's not so much fun when it's not so much fun. And so I want to chat with you guys about that in weeks to come. But next week's podcast episode will be talking to you about my team, the people we have here at Team Allwood, what they do, what their job descriptions are. We're going to get into all of the things. So if you don't already subscribe to my podcast, will you rush on over to iTunes? Just do a search for The Jennifer Allwood Show. We didn't name it anything fancy. It's just The Jennifer Allwood Show. And just hit the word subscribe. And you will literally just be notified every week when we put out a new podcast episode. It'll come right to your phone. You can listen to it then. You can send it to a friend. You can click delete all of the things. So appreciate you guys being here again this week. I appreciate you sharing these podcast episodes with your neighbor who has a business, your girlfriend who needs some encouragement, your sister-in-law who just started, her very first business. Please do me a favor and, give us a review over at iTunes. Send this to whoever could be blessed by it and show up again for me next week. I will see you then. And until next week, stay creative. Bye-bye. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. I'm so honored that you're here and that you just listen week in and week out and that you share the Jennifer Allwood Show with your friends and family. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or if you're an Android user, go download the Stitcher app and you can subscribe there so that you know every single week when a new episode releases. Also, if you have any time to leave us a review, these reviews are super important in getting guests for the show and sponsors for the show. And so we'd appreciate it if you have just a second to leave us a review. That would be amazing. Thank you guys again for being here. And until next week, stay creative.